Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to introduce today's guest, Ellen Connolly-Taaffe. Ellen is a clinical associate professor at the Kellogg School of Management, where she teaches personal leadership insights and is the director of Women's Leadership Program. She spent 25 years with Fortune 500 companies, holding the top brand management post at divisions of PepsiCo, Royal Caribbean, and Whirlpool Corporation. Ellen serves as an independent board director for 3 company boards, runs a leadership advisory, consulting, speaking, and coaching business, and is a TEDx speaker. Ellen shares her insights on leadership, careers, and advancing women and inclusion through her writing and speaking in media like Harvard Business Review, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Business Insider, Washington Post, Bloomberg, and Kellogg Insight. Is that all? And her new award-winning book, The Mirrored Door: Break Through the Hidden Barrier That Locks Successful Women in Place. Ellen uses her vast experience to help women understand and navigate through internal and external obstacles to create the careers they desire. It's a fantastic book. I recommend it widely. Please join me in welcoming Ellen Connolly-Taaffe. Welcome, Ellen.
Hi, Tammy. I'm so glad to be here with you. Looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Thank you for joining me from your home office in Chicago. So, as you know, Ellen, on Work from the Inside Out, we love to begin at the beginning and learn a little bit about those formative years, the early years of your life. So take us back there and tell us how those years may or may not have informed where you are today.
Sure. Well, I grew up in a big, close, wonderful family. I'm the 5th of 6 kids.
Oh, wow.
From Philadelphia, but moved to Fort Lauderdale when I was in the 2nd grade. My dad's job relocation. And I would say some of the formative times of my life were at our kitchen table, in the sense that my dad was, I saw him as like a visionary, and he was an entrepreneur, did some different things over time. But we really, as a family, centered a lot of our conversations at the dinner table on his business ventures.
Oh, fun.
And he would engage all of us in like brainstorming and problem solving. He was in commercial real estate during a time where he would talk about, these are the tenants in this shopping center. What else should we have? And I loved those conversations.
Yeah.
And it was like what I would now call, strategy or branding,
Right.
Brainstorming, ideation, or, things.
Wonderful.
Those words that I wouldn't have used back then. But it helped me, that and working in a retail shop in high school and, on college breaks, it helped me form a love of business. And it also, I would say in our household, there were things that I really felt or we really lived by. And one is, I do think my mom and dad helped us to think that you can do anything you set your mind to, with education, hard work, and a vision. We also had very much like a never quit ever, ever, which was both good and bad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And we also had a like, this is our year kind of feeling. So there was always sort of in the future, that's when all the great stuff would happen. I remember my mom saying, this is the year our ship is going to come in, or this is the year that daddy's ship is going to come in. And the reality is the ship never did come in.
Oh,
But we kind of lived like it was always, we were on the brink of it. So we did have a lot of financial ups and downs. And part of that kind of led me to also feel like I want more transparency. There were times where I can remember being called to the office of my high school. I loved my high school, but called me to the office, and it was really obvious we hadn't paid the tuition of this Catholic school, which back in the day, that was a really, low amount.
right.
But I remember feeling like scared and ashamed and embarrassed and like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know things were as hard as they were. And I could see the worry in my mom's, she always sort of tried to make things work out, coupon clipping, all those kinds of.
Yeah.
And so it was both this like wonderful, like you can do whatever you set your mind to, but there was also a cautionary tale in our financial like ups and downs. And so I did have this like feeling of like, I'm going to figure out what I want to do and go after it. But I also had I don't want that to ever happen to my kids kind of thing. And it also, I think, left me with like, I really want to have this transparency. But, like their vision for us, my parents didn't go to college, but all 6 of us went to University of Florida. Half of us have advanced degrees. We've all done very well with our careers. And so it gave me many gifts of believing in myself and that I could create the future.
Yeah.
And that's what I love to do as a board director, as a coach, as a teacher too. It gave me a lot of resilience, I think.
Yeah.
And I also, whether it's that situation or trying to stand out within 6 kids, I have been a striver too, like someone who's like, what's the next achievement? And that's been very good for me, but also has there have been times where I feel like I'm so burnt out. And so like managing through all that in my career too.
Yeah.
But, my parents are now gone, but we always felt like a team. And I feel that with my siblings, even though we're across the country.
Oh, wow.
So we now we're, much older, but we'll annually do a Sib Fest. That's just the adults and our spouses. And then we do holidays together with our kids. And, so my kids refer to Thanksgiving week as Cousins Week. Even though we lived in different cities, that's a real touchstone for us as a family, going to Sarasota.
Wow. It sounds wonderful overall. And I love the way you can see. I think this is true for probably all of us in one way or another, that, or at least for those of us who can look at the positives that we got from our upbringing, knowing that, guess what? It wasn't perfect, but it gave us a lot of the building blocks that we needed to get where we got going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it sounds like that you did get that. And so, so you went to the University of Florida, and what were your undergraduate studies like? What were you interested in at the time? Were you already had that hankering for business at the time, or?
Yeah, I did want to, I declared that I would go into the business college originally in accounting because I was good in math in high school, and I didn't really know what else. And people said, oh, you should look at accounting. And then I took my first marketing class and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Oh, wow.
So I majored in marketing in the business college at Florida. And then I realized as it was time for recruitment that the jobs that, at least at that time, that recruitment that came to Florida were much more sales jobs.
Oh, interesting.
More so than marketing. I think it's a little different now. and I got a job with Quaker Oats as a sales rep.
Ah,
And it was right after they acquired the company that owned Gatorade, which was the most developed in Florida where I was. So as part of the Gatorade rollout, so it was like food products and pet foods and Gatorade and
uh-huh.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my very first job, account representative in Fort Lauderdale for a Quaker Oats company.
So even though you were in sales, there's always you probably interfaced with marketing folks at the same time. Did you get a taste of marketing at that point, or?
I did later. So I moved throughout my 20s, multiple cities, was kind of on this promotional treadmill in sales where you go from like a basic account rep to calling on accounts. So calling on accounts like Publix or 7-Eleven,
Mm-hmm.
Dixie, back in the day, and managing other salespeople. Then I got moved to headquarters in Chicago.
Oh.
And that's where I was the sales liaison to brand teams. And that's where I really got that window into brand and marketing and all those things that I had studied.
I see.
So that was, so it took a little while to get there, but then I was sort of a member of the brand team, but representing the sales organization in that way. And that's where I really I fell in love with marketing. That's what brand marketing and brand management. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. So did that kind of take you back to that first marketing course a little bit, reconnect you to that thing that sort of pulled you in, or, you know what I mean? Like I'm still thinking, but she wanted to be in marketing and she ended up doing all this sales all those years. I was just wondering how that, and it sounds like you had a regular path of promotions and moving to different cities and all that. And I could see, like, in your 20s, that can be just fun and exciting no matter what. But I'm curious if in the back of your mind you were thinking, I never really signed up for this exactly, but it's okay.
Yeah. I think you nailed it.
Oh, really?
It was really exciting, and I loved getting promoted like every year or two.
Wow.
But along with that came a relocation. And so what I found over time was like I was just so focused on the next promotion that sometimes I didn't like make a life in that city. And I felt like other people thought I had this big sales career. And I sort of looked up and thought very few women, but I also felt like I just don't know that I see myself doing those things that they think, being the zone manager or the positions of what was ahead. So it was actually really hard for me to tell the VP of sales that I want to move into brand. The role I was in was a role that you were supposed to move back out to be a zone manager.
Right.
And once I saw how the brands work, I did recall the college class, but it was really like what I was seeing. I felt like I was more like the people in brand. I loved the consumer insights, the business management part, and the creative side too. There were really, at least in consumer packaged goods, brand management was kind of like the hub of the wheel, where you also were the cross-functional leader. So I saw sales was like one of the spokes. And I saw, there's supply chain, there's all these other areas of it. And I thought the variety of that and the scope of it, and I felt like it tapped into sort of the more strategic side, problem solving. And I think over time, sales was just like a harder lift for me over time. I did always love the people management side, like once I was a sales manager. But I eventually, I think I was the first one at Quaker to move from sales into brand management, because most of brand management was all MBAs from these top schools. So I eventually Quaker sponsored me, and I did go to Kellogg. I got my through the executive MBA program um, in my mid 30s.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so I did that once I was in brand management.
Uh-huh.
A bit of it was a bit of self validation because working with everybody else had an MBA.
Yeah.
Told me you don't really need to have one because you're doing just fine. But I felt like I want to know what they know, and I want to
Yeah.
know like more about how businesses work and all of that. And I also felt like it would help me for eventually if I move to other companies or things like
Right.
that.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah, I was curious about, there's a couple of companies that I work with now where they have kind of this progressive, every year or every other year promotional path for employees. I don't know that there is much of that as there used to be, but I've seen it, what you're describing. And yeah, you kind of stay in a lane, even if your responsibilities get a little varied and the bar gets raised, you're still sort of staying in a lane. So I'm curious how you were able to move from sales to brand in the way that you did, because you said you were the only one. How did you manage that?
I ended up having a mentor she was a brand director.
Ah.
And I asked to meet with her to try to understand more about brand. Now, she was a higher level than me, and she explained there's the creative side, developing the advertising, there's the business management side, and there's the people leadership side. And that,
Yeah.
she explained more, and I worked on her brands that she oversaw. And, I think she liked my work. And so then when I said I've thought through it and I really want to go through it, she was going to offer me a job and in brand. And the division that I was seated in ended up saying, wait, Ellen wants to go into brand. We'll give her a role here.
Oh.
So it was an interesting way to say, no, I'm serious about this.
Yeah.
And I've gone sort of out to this other person to help me.
Wow.
And so, I have no idea if they were in some sort of competition with each other, but that's how I got it. And I got my first brand assignment was the one that no one else wanted. It was actually technically called, it was All Other Cereals. So it was things like puffed rice and puffed wheat.
Oh, yeah.
And Kretschmer wheat germ, and
Oh my goodness.
it was a collection of things, but it taught me the business management side, and they were good enough to connect me with a few other brand managers who helped me learn how to run a business.
Wow.
And then at the time we had bagged cereals, which was like a lower price alternative.
Right.
That we did some branding work. So I was able to make the most of this thing, but it would not offend any other of the MBAs that I got this job, because it was really like the lowest one possible. and I did well with it, and it was exactly what I needed. And then after that, I went into a strategy new product role, which really helped me with like brand positioning. And I was working on the Quaker equity. And then I came back out into brand management of rice cakes and then chewy granola bars. And so that's where I really had like the full brand management
Wow.
kind of thing. So I had snacks and side dishes then, rice-a-roni and pastaroni and all those kinds of things.
Wow. Who would have known that rice-a-roni and oat-based products were coming from the same company? I just certainly didn't know that. But it's really interesting, though. I always find it fascinating to hear about how people navigated certain changes like that. And in this case, it sounds like you got a mentor in an area you were interested in, and then you asked for what you wanted. And I'm not saying that it was just that simple, but I can imagine that it wasn't like everyone was doing that. It wasn't a norm what you did.
Yeah, it wasn't a norm. And I would also say that um, I was really, I had lost my dad when I was 29
Oh,
to
wow.
cancer. And part of that was a real like life is short moment. What do I want? It was a combination of things of like, I want to stay in one place. I
Mm.
want to be in Chicago. I want this brand management. And I
Uh,
hired a coach. That was like the first of several coaches that I've had
wow.
in my
Mhm.
career to help me kind of clarify the who am I? Why am I sort of in this restless spot over
Mm.
when everyone else thinks I have this big career in sales?
Yeah.
And it helped clarify that this is what I want. And then I sort of saw the practical experience of sitting across the desk,
Yeah.
with people who were in that.
Yeah.
So those things, I think that the coaching helped me to be clear and it gave me the courage to, even ask for a meeting with Polly Kowalik, and then to ask for what I wanted.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't successful in getting that in my own division until I
Right.
was getting an offer elsewhere.
Right. Right. No, I just think it's such a great almost blueprint for how to get what you want, or at least try to get what you want. It's
Yeah.
great. I love that story. So, and we know that you did go to some other companies. So take us forward.
Yeah. So PepsiCo bought Quaker,
Ah,
and that meant a lot of change for me. I was the head of brand for snacks and side dishes. I was suddenly reporting to Frito-Lay, very challenging time of just really high expectations. And I then moved into a strategy role for
mm,
PepsiCo.
oh,
And I decided to do it as a reduced schedule.
mm,
I had two little girls, and my mom passed away for a lot of reasons.
yeah,
And PepsiCo allowed me to do that. It was again a asking for what I wanted,
mm,
and it was a great role. But after a while, I felt like, I've been there, done that, and
mm,
with the other brand to go back out into other brand roles.
mm-hmm,
And what was happening is marketing and the way we could talk to or reach consumers was really changing
uh,
at that time. And the internet was changing things. So I sound ancient to say it that way, but the reality was no one was going to a website to see, the Gatorade energy bar
right,
or like some of these things like that.
yeah,
And I got a recruiter call about going into the cruise industry. And I had been on one sort of booze cruise when I was in my early 20s, but I had not been back on a cruise ship. But I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, so going to
right,
South Florida seemed
sure,
pretty interesting. But the job, as I was the brand lead, CMO on celebrity cruises, and we also launched Azamara cruises. But as a marketer, brand manager, it gave me e-commerce. I was, going from developing granola bars or like what's the next snack
yeah,
to how do we want to deploy our cruises, and you need to develop the itineraries for 2 years out, or
wow,
what's the spa menu, or on our new ship, we were developing a new ship. We need 7 restaurants, and we need menu and the concept brief and all those kinds of things. So it's this expansive
yeah,
experience. It was still the best job for expanding everything I knew.
wow,
So it was so fun, and it was like the highs were high and the lows were low because you
yeah,
were so on the senior team. So if something happened, on
yeah,
Christmas Day
oh,
or
yeah,
whatever, like there's a conference call.
yeah,
We
yeah,
were 24/7. So
yeah,
really, I loved that job, but
yeah,
it was all consuming, which was
yeah,
really hard with 2 little girls. My husband,
yeah,
he didn't love South Florida, and we missed the Midwest too.
yeah,
But and it taught me that I loved cruising.
uh-huh,
I know we share that. Um,
yes,
and but early direct, email, loyalty club. There were all these aspects that you couldn't get in consumer packaged goods.
Right.
That I learned. And then missed the Midwest and felt like I need to get more of a handle on how much I'm working, to be honest with you, too.
Yeah, sure.
And got a role at Whirlpool, which had more sane hours, I would say, in a great family lifestyle, I would also say. But
Sure.
I hit at the worst economic time. So I joined, and like a month later was when like banks were going, and
it's like 2008 or something.
Yeah, late 2007.
Oh, 2000.
When that started.
Yeah.
And then, and then people weren't buying our product. No one was buying an appliance unless your refrigerator broke. So that was a really, great people, great brands. I did some work on the brand portfolio. We just acquired Maytag. So I had the Whirlpool and Maytag and Amana. But, the business was in such trouble that unfortunately I had to go through three rounds of laying people off.
Wow.
I really thought the business could go under because of how the category was so impacted during that time. And eventually, I was also selling off media because I came in as like the big brand background because we were advertising like on the Oscars.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time working with agencies to sell off media that we had bought up front.
Wow.
So it was really kind of a crisis job.
Yeah.
Not really what I wanted to do. And I had 3 bosses in my first 15 months.
Wow.
And with my last one, I said, my hope is to get clarity on what this job is. Am I the right person for this? Because I can do this stuff, but it's not really what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And in a be careful what you wish for moment, I did get that clarity of my job was eliminated.
Oh.
And it should have been because we weren't going to be spending money on advertising.
I see. And
we really had to restructure the spend. You didn't need my job. So I really respect the choice. And fortunately, they took care of me in the sense of I got a great severance package and I had time. So I started my first job 2 weeks after graduating college. And other than 2 maternity leaves, I never took time off to think. So that was a time where I got another coach who I loved. And I really went through how do I want to work at this stage? What do I want to do? And we decided we wanted to come back to Chicago. And the jobs that were open here in Chicago was like a similar role at Kraft Foods, a role at Sears on the Kenmore appliance business, and United CMO, United Airlines, which at the time was like in the newspaper for possible bankruptcy. So I was like, I don't have a heart for any of these.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like I've been there, done that with the Kraft and the, but so the CMO thing is, it seemed like at that point in time, what the research reports would say is that those jobs last for 18 months to 2 years.
Wow.
And I just was not in a situation where I wanted to be like moving all that frequently.
Yeah.
Or relocating. Like we already relocated. We wanted to come back to Chicago.
Right. And I can imagine too that if you were stepping into a role like that and especially in a situation where you knew that the company was experiencing some kind of crisis, not that you would only step into a company where everything's, picture perfect, right? But it's like, do you want a job where, you're in crisis management all the time, or do you want that more, creative job that maybe involves, lots of strategy, creativity, but also, of course, problem solving. But there's a big difference between that and what you ended up dealing with at Whirlpool.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think that when you have a chance to work for a company that's growing,
Yeah.
you know, there's a time, and I actually do have a lot of crisis management experience,
Yeah.
but it's not the mode I want to be in. I
Right.
really
Right.
love that like future, like back to our kitchen table, that future, what should we do
Right.
next kind of thing.
Right. And same thing, like you were good in math and you thought, well, I'm going to study accounting. And then you took a marketing course and you said, oh, I like marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what
Yeah.
I tell people all the time. Just because you're good at, you might be a great crisis manager, but it doesn't mean that it's good for you.
Yeah. I think that's such great wisdom that you're sharing there, because I think that, like, I'm guessing your listeners are good at a lot of things,
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
finding what do you have a heart for? What could you see
Yes.
yourself? You're going to be working for a long time. So what
Right.
could you see yourself doing?
Right. Well, and I think a lot of people do go, you know, on the path of, well, I'm good at this, so I'm supposed to do something I'm good at. And I always say, not necessarily. Yes, of course, you want to feel that you're at least somewhat competent at something. But if there's no enjoyment in what you're doing or very little, it's going to burn you out. And I love the way you say, is there any heart in this? You
Yeah.
know, and I think we have way too many people out there with no heart, and then you hear someone say, well, that's why they call it work. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'd like to stop that. How about calling it life and enjoying it?
Love that.
Yeah. So what did you end up doing? I'm on the edge of my seat now.
So I worked with my coach to create a list of 10 things of how I wanted to work that
Mm,
that were, um, and one of the things was I don't want to do stupid stuff. And I found that even though I wanted to get to these senior positions,
yeah.
sometimes I was doing stupid stuff, or I
Yeah.
spent so much time aligning all my peers. And
Oh,
it's just sort of like, can't we just move forward? So that was just the one that I would say. But it went down to like how long a commute. But I really
oh,
wanted to work with smart people who
yeah.
are making an impact. And this is in my Make Room for Serendipity. I went on
Mm,
a girls' weekend with a few people from Whirlpool and a few of their friends that I didn't really know that well, and two
mm,
of the women there owned this brand strategy and marketing firm, and I was their client, but I worked with people that worked for them. So
mm.
I was their client when I was at Whirlpool. We did a big segmentation study and the whole brand strategy work. But over that weekend, I was talking about what my list of 10 and the kinds of work I want to do. It wasn't tied to like the big brand name company and all of that. And they gave me a ride back afterwards.
Mm,
And they looked at each other in the front seat and said, would you want to talk to us about coming to work for us?
mm.
And what I found out is that they had this company. They were former Whirlpool people, and they started this company like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years earlier, and they were ready to retire and sell the company in a few years.
Oh,
So I joined this company called Smith Dahmer Associates. They were based by Whirlpool. Whirlpool was their biggest client, but they were okay with me living in Chicago. And then
mhm.
I helped to diversify. So I came in as president of Smith Dahmer,
Oh,
and in
wow.
a year they retired, and then it was sold 5 years later.
Wow.
And so my work was basically transitioning from this very cool company, but that needed a little bit more professionalization, I guess I would
Mm,
say, if that's a
mhm,
word, and also some diversification. So we moved
mm,
into consumer packaged goods and
mm.
some other categories that we weren't in, to try to be more than just home durables.
I
Um,
see.
and so I left at the 5 year mark. They had retired, and that was 2015 when they sold the company. And along the way, when I was there, I would work with clients who were leaders in mainly Fortune 500 companies.
Mm-hmm.
And many times I felt like I was like counseling them on how to deliver sometimes bad news to senior management. Because say we would do a research report on some new product that did not do well,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the president's baby or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And so I played this role that led me into becoming certified as a coach myself after I left.
Ah.
So that was sort of, I also, before I left, we had a couple offers to buy the company and the owners turned it down. And I was starting to doubt, like, are they ever going to sell? Because I don't want to be stuck in a situation where I'm the one that goes with the company and I have to relocate or something like that.
I see. Yeah.
And I interviewed for another job with a private equity firm. And through a day of interviews where they asked me about every job I ever had, I realized it was like a fun day in a way. I was not fully prepared for all that, but it was not the right job for me.
Yeah.
And I think we both knew that, but it was an enjoyable discussion. And I got feedback from the recruiter that said they really thought you were great, that you'd be a great CMO somewhere, but that they also said the other bit of feedback was that when you talked about all your jobs, you didn't lead with the business results, you led with the people results.
Ah.
And my initial reaction was like, I've turned it around. I've done, I've had growth business. I've had triple digit, like all that. I didn't say that to the recruiter, but I was sort of mad at the feedback. And like a day or two later, it was like, what I am most proud of is the people results.
There you go.
And so that was sort of an instrumental thing of like, at this stage of my career, like I want to impact people. And so after the business was, I transitioned out, but I ended up going into a coach certification that was like a year-long thing. And I realized I missed I struggled with how do I get new clients, the business development part of coaching. I love coaching, but it was like how to get clients was hard for me.
Yeah.
And I really missed being part of something bigger.
Yeah.
And so a recruiter contacted me about the Kellogg CMO job. Which I loved Kellogg, but I wasn't sure if I would want to be a CMO of a university. But I went.
We're not talking Frosted Flakes here, folks.
Yeah, it's Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern.
Right.
Yeah, I should have said that. Thank you. Yeah, no Tony the Tiger. But I ended up meeting with someone who I used to work with who was at Kellogg, and the day I was there, I heard that they had a women's leadership initiative. It was just announced the day I was there.
Wow.
And she said, I had shared at the lunch that I'm trying to get more women on boards because I had ended up joining a few boards. And that day she said, I think there's a job in this women's leadership. And I said, can I get that job description? So it was a much lower level job than the CMO, but that was sort of where my interests were.
Yeah.
And so I pulled out of the CMO search and then, interviewed over a series of months to come in on the director of women's leadership.
Wow.
And they put me on faculty, and eventually I heard about this class, Personal Leadership Insights, which is all the work I've done, and you coach the students too.
Yeah.
And said, how can I make that happen?
Wonderful.
So, so now I do that. And then I serve on these boards, which I sort of skipped over as well.
Well, and that's been the serving on at that time when you started. So you started at Kellogg was that 2016? That makes sense. Yeah. And you were already serving on boards simultaneously?
Yeah. So I joined my first board in the consumer packaged goods space in 2011,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and then and that was during that time when I was laid off from Whirlpool, but just beginning to start at Smith Dahmer. So they were fine with that. And then I joined another board in 2015 in the furniture industry. And then in 2018, I joined the AARP, has a subsidiary called AARP Services Inc., which does all the partnerships and with providers like United Healthcare or Budget Rental Car, so we say health, wealth, and self. Different, all kinds of different providers and things like that.
Oh, that's great.
So it's a revenue generating subsidiary of the nonprofit that creates membership products and services.
Nice. And are you still on all of those boards?
Yes, I am.
Wow.
Still
That's
on all.
great. They're lucky to have you. I can say that.
Thank you.
And I know you remain the director of the Women's Leadership Program at Kellogg.
Yes.
And you've developed that over the years. And you have your own consulting practice as well.
Yes. And I used to do more coaching outside of Kellogg, but now I'm so busy coaching students. The consulting that I do, I think it's kind of a speaking / consulting where I might come in and help a company figure out how they want to develop leaders or focus specifically on advancing women, creating an employee resource group or some sort of training program. So it's a little bit of speaking, teaching workshops, or strategy around how do they want to develop their people.
That's great. That's wonderful. It sounds. I love all those things.
Yes,
We need it. We need it. We need it. And when did you decide to write your book?
I, on a lark, applied to give a TED Talk in 2019 and got it and ended up connecting with Heroic Public Speaking and got connected to AJ Harper, who was my writing coach on the TEDx talk. And in the conversation with her, it was basically a talk about advancing women and this dynamic that I was seeing that AJ helped me sort of formulate. The idea or the term that I have coined is the mirror door. And I was seeing in myself, the women I coach, the students I coach, and in the research, this dynamic that many times women face at the moment of opportunity, reflecting inward and thinking we're not ready or not worthy to move forward into action where all the growth is.
Right.
And so with AJ just doing the TEDx talk, that was a way to begin to write. And I also, through Kellogg School, also was encouraged to write articles for Kellogg Insight or for other publications. And so that got me interested in sort of figuring out what is my point of view?
Yeah.
What do I want to say?
Sure.
And then how do I write? Do I have a writer in me? And after doing the TEDx talk, I signed up for AJ Harper's book workshop. And so that gave me the structure and the educational part of how do you put together a book that someone would want to read and benefit from.
Yeah, well, you and I have followed similar paths. I haven't taken AJ's workshop, but I've sat in on a lot of things that she's done, and through Heroic Public Speaking have benefited from her writing, coaching, and editorial help. She's amazing.
Absolutely.
Just terrific. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I love the way you've also just accessed and used support throughout your career and in helping you both structure and help you to focus to get to the next place. I think that's an important message to share with the listeners that even though here you were very, highly experienced, seasoned professional, you're never too far along to get a little more help or a little more guidance to continue to expand yourself in some ways. And so the mirrored door, tell us a little bit about that, because I just think it's a really foundational book. I'd love to see it be part of a high school or college curriculum for all young women.
Yeah, so it started with me new in the job at Kellogg School, and at the very first orientation, seeing a female CEO share her story and then open it up for questions, and all the questions came from men.
Mm.
And I and these people are so talented and smart, and I know that, and as I met them, I know that even more. And I realized I could also see in myself, here I would get in a boardroom, get elected to the board after all these interviews,
Yeah.
and then I would be too quiet and not speak up, because I'd wait for myself to be perfect, have that perfectly wise answer.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I came to it, we moved on. So I saw this dynamic, and then in the book it really goes through kind of it's a combination of a lot of stories, my own, but of people that I've coached, with their names changed.
Of course.
But
yeah.
people I've coached, the research behind that really backs up that these things happen, and a lot of many times it's through messages that we have received early on that get reinforced in the workplace too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both, we face these internal obstacles, but they are also there's something sort of in society, but in our workplaces, in family structures, TV, all of that sometimes has women more likely to be doing some of these strategies that I've identified that are both helpful to us, but also have an underbelly. And
yes,
they are, like preparing to perfection, eagerly pleasing,
right,
fitting the mold, pushing pedal to the metal,
I
and then
love the way
patiently
you frame
performing.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. So they make us successful,
Yeah.
but they're hard, they have something that holds us back. They lead us to stay behind the mirror door and think, oh, we need to do more before we take action.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love the way the book is structured too, because it gives the reader a chance to do some reflection, think about themselves in these contexts, both in terms of the positive and in the ways that these things might be getting in the way, and really working through them. And not in a way where you're going to get overwhelmed with it either, but really working through it in a constructive way. It feels like a very relatable, accessible, and palpable read. And I think people can pick it up and go through it, chapter by chapter, and get something out of it, put it down, try something for a while, and come back to it. It's not something that you have to digest all at once, but I think it's totally relatable. I don't know anyone who wouldn't find it relatable. And I just love the way it's crafted. I'm really glad you've put it out there. And she didn't pay me to say that, folks. So
thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
So Ellen, we probably need to wrap up now. But before we do that, how can people find out more about you and your work? Where would be a good place for them to find you?
I would say two places. My website is ellentaaffe.com. Taaffe is spelled Taaffe. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I have both a newsletter on the website and then also a LinkedIn newsletter. And I'm also on Instagram
Great.
as well.
Well, we'll have all those links and links to your book and everything that you're doing in the show notes. So as we're wrapping up here, I have one final question. So you've made some amazing transitions throughout your career and really well thought out decisions. What would be a key piece of advice you might give someone else who's considering their next move?
My advice is to tap into your courage. I think we're in a world where everyone's searching for confidence, and courage comes first. Like what you said, even about the book, you said you can reflect and then act on it. Courage is what you need to move forward and to act, to ask for that meeting or to, ask for advice, to go for the job. And you gain the confidence after taking that action and either succeeding or falling and getting back up. But we likely have more courage and we just need to tap into it.
I love that. I've actually borrowed your quote on that a few times and shared that with people, mostly to get them thinking, because I think some people have it the other way around. They think they have to be confident in order to exercise courage. And I love the way you frame that. Ellen, thank you so much for being here today. This has been just a thrill and a delight for me, and I really appreciate it.
Me too. It's very fun to talk through all of this, trying to remember it all. Thank you so much, Tammy.
My pleasure. Thanks for sticking around to the end of my interview with Ellen Taaffe. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? If you're interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoolerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 251. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. If you're feeling it, please help me to inspire more people to grow their careers by clicking on the Apple Podcast button right there. Leave an honest rating and review so that others can also access the podcast. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. You can also help sustain this podcast by helping me. Buy me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.